Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. If you haven't been here before, my name is Mandy and here I do a lot of art content and a little bit of book content. It just depends on the month. Last month of February, I really didn't get a chance to update about my reading, but I did read quite a bit. So I wanted to sit here with my adorable dog Brutus and give you kind of a roundup on what I read. And kind of my process of reading as of late, because it's kind of shifting in a way that I am okay with and in a way that I am understanding myself better as a reader. And so I'll talk about that later, but it's mostly format and what fits in my life right now. So the first book I want to talk about, and it was the first book I read this month, was The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels by Janice Hallett. It came out for the US in January, but this is the UK edition. The UK edition is just absolutely beautiful. I've had it for months, and my friend and I, we read this together, which is a lot of fun to read a book like this together. And her copy has the same amount of pages, but it's thinner because the UK, they know how to make a book. But basically, this is a story about a cult that commits a murder, like a session of murders, and then the person who is researching it and trying to figure out what really happened, because nobody really knows what happened with the Alperton Angels, and just all of that goes in it. It was very reminiscent of Michelle McNamara's actual book on the Golden State Killer, and it had a lot of that. What is it that we are doing with true crime? And so I enjoy the critiques that are coming out as of recent for true crime. And this is the fourth book that Janice Hallett has written, and I have only not read The Christmas Appeal, and this one is better. Like, she just keeps getting better and better. They're all, like, I think The Appeal for me was a 3 or 4 star read, but this one and The Twyford Effect, or The Twyford Code, were top-notch 5. So this one, again, I really, really enjoyed. And I think that if you enjoy mixed media and you enjoy having a little bit of like emails mixed with interviews, mixed with podcasts, that one is just definitely for you. The next one I want to talk about is The Girl I Am, Was, and Never Will Be by Shannon Gibney. This is a speculative memoir of a woman who had a transracial adoption and really dealt with how she experiences race and everything. Oh boy, Bobby. How she experiences race and everything within her life, and how she views adoption, and just the like way that she sees the world, and how she imagined life could have been if her mother would have kept her versus not. And so it was just, it was gorgeous. This reminded me a lot of, like, formatting reminded me a lot of, what is that book? Station 11? No, not Station 11, but that's the author. What is the author's name? Emily St. Mandel. The other one, I have not read Station 11. Sea of Tranquility. There you go. This one reminded me of like settings, like style, because this is a speculative memoir. A lot of it is fiction, but a lot of it is also her memoir of like what really happened in her life. And she weaves these together so beautifully. And I don't hear people talking about this book. This book is so good. It needs to be talked about. Of books like that people should read, this one's there. So that one I really enjoyed. So I especially love it because, you know, she is really grappling with things like race too, because her biological mother was white, but her biological father was black. So this was a great way for me, I felt, to jump off into reading Black authors for most of the month. So definitely pick this up if you can. The next book I read was All the Sinners Bleed by S.A. Cosby. And this one was dealing with some craziness. Like, so we have a black sheriff in a southern town, and there is, right at the beginning, there's like a school shooting, and we're not really sure what's going on. And this is him grappling with his town and discovering who this person is, because then there's these series of serial killings. And it is, if you've ever read S.A. Cosby before, he is action-packed. He never stops. He just goes. And this one is no different. This one had me on the seat of my pants. I could not put this book down. I loved it. It was definitely a 5-star read, which honestly, most of my books this month were, because if I didn't have a 5-star, if like I wasn't feeling the book, I probably put it down. And so I can't recommend S.A. Cosby enough if you haven't read him. I loved his other one, Razorblade Tears, and I want to read his whole backlist, and I'll get there eventually. But I like to space those action-packed thrillers out. And then the next book I read was Their Vicious Games by Joelle Wellington. And this was a YA thriller that was like, I don't want to give too much away. I loved this book. It was campy. It was funny. It was twisted. It had a lot to say. But it was basically take Squid Game and take The Bachelor, make it YA, Battle Royale style, and that's what you have. And it was great. If you can handle that kind of stuff and you like the battle of the fittest or survival of the fittest, definitely pick this one up. It was good. I can't remember if there are any trigger warnings. For me, I probably will not mention trigger warnings, because trigger warnings don't stop me from reading a book. I will read it, and if I don't like it, I put it away. You know, it's just how it is. But I personally feel like trigger warnings are spoilery for me, and I want to go into the book without knowing those spoilers, so I usually will skip over them. Just PSA, I'll probably say that in other videos too, but I just wanted you to know that. The next book I read was Delicious Monsters, and that was by Lizelle Sambury. And this one was, again, a podcaster was going to this town where a black woman died, and she's talking about this house, and this house could be haunted, and there's just all these layers of darkness and everything, and it's dual timelines. So you've got what happened now, or what's happening around now, with this woman who's podcasting, and then you go back in time with this girl who's moving into this house with her mother. And this house is weird. There's some weird stuff going on, and you're trying to figure out what happens. It is very slow burning. It has a lot of grooming in it, which is a really touchy subject, but it's done with such finesse and grace, and it's such a good book that I can't recommend it enough. Again, I can't recommend it enough. I enjoyed it. I loved it. And then I want to pull out this one. This one's from my library, and it's called So Much for Love by Sophie Lambda. And this one is a graphic novel, and the art is fantastic. But I also love this. It's a graphic novel memoir about a woman who escaped a toxic relationship with an abusive man. And it was good. Like, it was so good. And for me, because I'm not in a toxic abusive relationship, this part right here, like, this is the back part is all about what she did, and like how she got out, and what, like, giving resources and things so you can get out of your toxic relationship if you need that. But before that, before you get to the like self-help part of this book was a good story. It was like just all the feelings of, am I wrong? Like, I'm stupid. He thinks it. I must be. It's all in my head. Just it's a very good book, and it's very, very beautiful. I hope that Sophie Lambda comes out with some more graphic novels, because I will pick them up. She's a great storyteller. I can't get over the art. She's got this cute little bear that like is in the book too. And I randomly found this at my library and was just absolutely in love with it. Look at the little bear. Look at the little bear. Yeah. And just the way that she uses color and everything else, loved it. So I would recommend that one if you can handle that topic. The next book I read was Becoming the Boogeyman by Richard Chismar, which is a sequel to his first book called Chasing the Boogeyman, which was a very meta true crime book based on his hometown, but it was fictionalized serial killer, but it was very, very reminiscent of Michelle McNamara's, I just remember Michelle McNamara, and now I had her book in my head, and I can't remember the name, but these books, a lot of these books are from after her, very much so are inspired by. So that was Chasing the Boogeyman. Chasing the Boogeyman was the first one. So this is coming back after they figure out who this serial killer was and what happened in this town, which he does this really cool thing where he melds all these things he remembers about his hometown and the people. And so you have a little bit of his memoir personal story, which, again, another book like that has his personal memoir in it, but it's all fictionalized. This one is all fictionalized. Nothing in these books actually happened except for maybe some of the events with his friends, which is kind of fun, but there's no serial killer. These things don't happen. So it's so fun. But this one is kind of this one reminded me Silence of the Lambs-esque, where he has become friends with the serial killer and now there's a copycat serial killer. And I think you can read this one without reading the first one, and you might miss some of the details, but you could read this as a standalone. However, I really enjoyed Chasing the Boogeyman. I enjoyed Becoming the Boogeyman just a little bit more because this one is more the cat and mouse chase that I like so much, but also I don't know, there's just something about it. But he, even in the physical copies, will have pictures. Him and his son will go out and take pictures that look like you're reading an actual true crime novel. So I recommend both of those books so much. The next book I read was The Narrow by Kate Alice Marshall. Now this one I think I gave a 3.5 4-star rating. Most of the things that I've talked about so far have all been my 5 stars. So now we're getting into the little bit lower. And I think I would round this up to 4 stars if I had to. And I know I did on Goodreads. But this one, I love the way that Kate Alice Marshall creates characters and tells compelling stories. But there was something about this one that just didn't hit as much for me. And I wonder if it's because I really love her adult novels and the YA. I don't know, but because I loved these Fleeting Shadows. I don't know. There was something about this one, but this one takes place in a boarding school. There is this tiny little river that nobody's supposed to go into because the undercurrent is crazy, but this one girl survives almost drowning, except that something's going on and she's weird. It's very supernatural. It is a ghost story. There are some real weird ghosts. I did love the way that she creates such a creepy, spooky atmosphere, and that stuff matters for it. So if you're looking for a really good ghost story, this one has the ghosts. I would even say they're kind of vengeful ghosts too. So it's a great one. There's not much that I want to give away because I think that there's just so much to this plot that going into it kind of unknown is great, but there are some pretty heavy topics in this one as well. So again, proceed with caution. Check the trigger warnings if you need to, but I am officially a Kate Alice Marshall lover. I have read 4 books from her and have enjoyed all 4 of them, and I'm going to read everything on her backlist, and I will read everything that comes out. She is just phenomenal, and she tells such great stories, whether it be an adult novel, adult thriller, or it be a gothic-esque YA novel. So I've really enjoyed that, and there's other stuff that she's got, so I'm excited to check out her back catalog. The next book is called Before I Let Go by Kennedy Ryan, and this was a second chance romance that in a lot of ways worked really well for me, but I did have some critiques with it. It's basically this woman and her ex-husband are still in each other's lives. They have a kid. Something happened with their marriage that they ended their marriage because of depression and darkness. And I loved the way that Kennedy Ryan portrayed depression in such beautiful ways. However, there were just some of the things where it dragged on a little bit too long, and some of the things that it was more choices that I didn't really care for. It's not that they weren't good. It's just that it wasn't what I enjoy in a book. And I don't know, I just felt like not as satisfied, but also it was a really good book and I wanted to finish it and I was rooting for the characters. They were very flawed and they were willing to figure things out towards the end, but it was like a lot of it was miscommunication, which is a hard trope for me, but miscommunication because of grief is so different. So it was very realistic. It was done very well. There were like little tiny critiques that I had that are silly, and I mean, they're not like, this is a bad book. This is a fantastically written, beautiful book. There were just things that I don't like personally in a romance, especially like, it was like slow burn until like 70% of the book. And then it was like, whoa, did somebody just like explode? Like explode and it just doesn't stop. That was kind of how I felt. It took so long to get there. And then it was like, okay, can we go back to talking now? But that's just me. That's a me thing. Again, that's a me thing. But if that is something you like, great for you. The next book I read was Late Bloomer. And who was it? Maisie Eddings. And this one was a NetGalley advanced copy that comes out this month of March. And it was about, it's basically like Hallmark. It was totally cheesy Hallmark book that I gave 3 stars to because it was so cheesy. Like there were points where it was over the top cheesy, but it was so cute. It was 2 women on different spectrums of neurodivergence, and they get thrown into this farm because of circumstances, this flower farm, and they have to make this flower farm work, and they have to live together. So it's got the trope of, you know, they are forced proximity plus like all these things, but I enjoyed it. They were cute characters. They were fun. It just, when I read a romance, I want a little bit more substance than just like over the top, like mothers and things like that, like little things like that. It's like, but it was great. It was a little popcorn read. There was nothing wrong with it. Like I absolutely like, those are the kind of books that you read and you're like, oh, that was so cute, but it didn't do everything for me and it's not going to be a favorite, but I enjoyed my experience, and that was that one. Another book that I read this, oh man, okay. The next book that I read this month is called The Center by Ayesha Manazir Siddiqui, and I read this because so many people were raving about this and giving it 5 stars, and I can see why they gave it 5 stars, but also like, I don't know, like it's just one of those books that just, I already am like forgetting details about it and it didn't work for me completely, and it was fine. Like there's nothing wrong with it. It's weird, and I don't even know how to describe the plot, because I feel like if you go into it, like it's kind of like, I don't know, it's very much so like language mixed with like weird things. I don't know. I can't explain it even. So I would suggest Beautifully Bookish Bethany is who I heard from the book about. So maybe go check out one of her videos where she talks about the center, because it was one of her top books last year. And so I was like, oh man. And then Books and Lala read it too. And I was like, oh, okay, so let's try this out. It just wasn't for me. And that's okay. It was well written and it was compelling and I wanted to read it to the end. So I did finish it, but it just was a book that was meh. The next book I read was Level Up by Kathy Yardley. I love Kathy Yardley. I read Role Playing last year and I loved it. And then I read another one by her that was a little bit older, but then I went back and I was like, I'm gonna read her whole backlist. And so I started with her first book in the Fandom series. Is that what it's called? A Fandom Hearts novel. So this one is basically 2 programmers live together. They're roommates to lovers type dynamic. They're trying to create a video game, and it was cute. There were some things that like didn't completely work for me because of the times, but also this was written like 10 years ago. So times and romance novels have come a long way in 10 years, and it was cute. I enjoyed it. It's one of those that, like, the characters were fantastic. Like, I did really enjoy the main male and female characters, and their little love story was adorable. But there was little things like that was like, okay, I see potential here, Kathy. I see potential. Let's keep going. And so to see her roots and to see where she's come from, I will enjoy continuing to read her backlog, and I will continue in this Fandom Hearts series because I loved the full cast of characters. There are so many fun, nerdy characters, and it was great. And now the book that I will say was like kind of a womp womp for me was The Night House by Jo Nesbo. And I should have DNF'd this, but it was a galley that I had like gotten last year, and I'm trying to get caught up on my galley so I can get like my ratio to 80% read. And so I did read this because I was like, oh, I started it, and it was, I don't know, like the beginning of the book was so good. And so it was like basically this town, and it was very reminiscent of like old Stephen King, and then it went off the hinges, and I don't know where it went, and I didn't like it. And so I gave this one a 1 star. Like I should have DNF'd this one, and I didn't. So basically that's to say that's what I read this month. So a lot of really good books, and a couple not so. Like actually not even a couple not so. There was only one that wasn't good. Like there was only one that I didn't enjoy. The rest I enjoyed. Like there's nothing on my list besides The Night House that I wouldn't say go pick up. They were great. I had a good reading month, and I was really, really excited. And I think one of the big things that I discovered for myself in my reading is that this right here helps me read. And if I can get a book on Kindle, I'm going to read it. And so right now I'm reading Water Lily by Ella Cara Deloria. I'm reading this one for my class. I'm taking Native American Studies class, and it's a very good book. But I'm reading it on my Kindle because there was a Kindle copy available. I have all these shelves of physical copies, and I rarely read them. I did read The Girl I Am, Was, and Never Will Be, and The Mysterious Case of the Alperton Angels. Like the 3 that I held up physical copies of, I did read those physically, but I was in a place where I don't like reading physical books. And I've discovered that my hands go numb because of like my issues with life. I have a hard time shoving in my backpack with my sketchbook and everything else. Whereas I take this with me, and I'm even looking to get one of the smaller e-readers. I think it's called the Books Palma, because I would love my screen to be this size, but not this, not my phone. I would love my screen to be this size, but not my phone. And that's what they are, because it would be nice to be able to like carry my book with me that's the same size, because I really like reading on this size. That's just me. And I think it's a really great thing to recognize how you read, because like I have all these books, and you can't see them right now because they're right next to me, and they're a giant mess. But I have so many books because I just love looking at books, but I don't love reading them. And I am okay with that when we have e-reading devices where we can read different. And like what's great is now that I'm seeing that there's other e-readers out there besides Kindle, I don't have to get everything on Amazon, which is fantastic. And so I am just really thinking about my reading experiences and what I enjoy. And I enjoy audio. I enjoy the occasional physical, but I really love reading from my Kindle. I pop it into my little stand at night and I read from my bed. I can just sit on my couch with my kids. It's really hard when you're cuddling 2 kids on both sides to read a book. Like it's really hard. So I have discovered that like the accessibility, and I know that there's a lot of discord and discussion, and there still has been, about Kindles. It's where I read. It's where I read the most books. And so I'm going to continue to do that. And I think like really honestly, I am probably not going to pick up physical books for a long time. And so I wanted to share that, and I'll share kind of every month where I'm reading, if I'm reading physical or Kindle, because I think it's really important to share that and like say it's okay. Like I'm not like a crazy Kindle girly that has like, I tried to do that and I got it replaced, thank goodness, but I ended up scratching the screen of my Kindle because of the plastic case. I like these ones where it's like a case that's protective and you can open it up and it opens, and then mine has a stand, a kickstand, and like I don't like them because they make my hands go numb. I don't even like the pop socket, but then I can set this like this, and yeah, that's how I like it. But to each their own. We all have our way of reading, and if we're reading, that's what matters. And so anyway, that's what I wanted to mention, is that I am going bookless. I think it will be great for me, at least in this season of my life. And I just kind of like one of those things like, oh, just go with where you're feeling. You don't need big stacks of books. I mean, if you want to, great, but I'm a Kindle girly. I'm a Kindle girly, not in the same way that there are. I mean, I've had an e-reader since they first came out. I got the Nook first because I was a Barnes & Noble enthusiast. But when Barnes & Noble like went only to like not e-ink for a while there, they only had tablet styles. I got my first Kindle, and now I'm just have so many books on my Kindle that I bought that it makes no sense to go back right now. But looking at something that has apps, that's where I'm at. So anyway, that is where I'm at. I'm excited. I don't really have a TBR for the month of March. I plan on reading Vera Wong because that's the Literally Dead book club. And I think I'm going to start reading the Sarah J. Maas books with Beautifully Bookish Bethany because she's got this Mass Effect read along, which I loved the title of that, by the way. It was great because, you know, Mass Effect is such a huge video game for us nerds. And I am excited. I'm excited to try things. I'm going to read where the wind takes me, at least for now, because that's kind of where I've been doing. And I don't know, things aren't hitting in the same way that they were hitting before. And I'm just kind of like, what am I in the mood for? I don't know. So anywho, that's my February reading wrap up, and I hope you enjoyed it, and I hope you have a great day. Bye!